Hey guys, it's Max. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 issues or problems that I have with Sony cameras. Now, you guys know that I really like my Sony cameras. They are my main money makers, but some of these things just don't make sense. Now, I'm also going to make a video on the 5 kind of best things that I really enjoy about Sony cameras that people don't often mention. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, make sure you guys enable those notifications so you guys don't miss out on that video. Now, I'm mainly going to talk about video things since this channel is focused on filmmaking, but for you photographers that clicked on this video, I'm going to give you guys 2 bonus things at the start of this video before going into my 5 issues. The first issue for the photographers out there is that the dual card slots in the A7R3 and the A9 are not the same speed. Now, I'm glad that Sony is finally putting in dual card slots in their high-end expensive bodies, but with that said, one of them is much slower than the other. So if you're going to be maxing out your buffer and having to wait for it to clear, you're going to have to wait more than twice as long if you're doing backup recording. So you're taking a photo and it's going to save them to both card slots. That way you have a backup just in case one of your SD cards goes out. So that is really unfortunate, because if you have a full buffer, instead of waiting 30 to 35 seconds for it to clear, you have to wait over a minute long. Now, that also means if you're going to be doing lots of photos in a series, the buffer is going to fill up faster because it takes longer for those images to get recorded to the card slots. So that is very unfortunate. The second thing for you photographers is that Sony does not offer a medium or a small size RAW option. So if you're shooting on a high resolution camera like the A7R2 or A7R3, you're forced to shoot with 42 megapixels if you want the flexibility of RAW. Now, I come from a Canon background where I shot with Canon full frame cameras for wedding photography for years, and I love the option to drop down to medium RAW. So if I was going out and doing some photos, I didn't need the full resolution, I wanted to save on space, I was able to drop down and still have the flexibility of RAW. But now with these Sony cameras that are really high resolution, it'd be great to have that option to just go down to 24 megapixel, have the camera just oversample the 42 megapixel into a smaller size, so you still have the flexibility, but you don't have to deal with the extra storage space, and it's easier on your computer to edit. So I really wish Sony would implement this. Now let's move on to video. I'm going to give you guys 5 issues that I have with the Sony cameras. To start off, number 1 has been bugging me for a long while now, and that's when you're playing back your files, you're looking at the video clips that you've recorded, you don't get the full framing or the shot when you're flipping through clips to see which one to select. You get this kind of film reel icon, so you don't really see what the framing is or what the shot looked like, which is frustrating if you want to match up from a previous framing. On top of that, you can't even see the clip length when you're looking at the clip, so you have to do is you have to start playing it and like scroll through the whole clip to see if that one was like a 1-minute take or a 5-minute take. So if you work with lots of video files like I do, you do comparisons with cameras, stuff like that, this can really get frustrating. The second thing has got to do with autofocus. Now, most people know that the Sony phase detection video autofocus works really well, but one thing they don't have is an autofocus single, something where the camera will focus one time and they'll keep that focus without continuously changing and looking at the background. So Panasonic does this in a really good way where you select the AFS, you can tap what you want in focus or press down the shutter, it'll get in focus, and that's it, you're set. On the Sonys, you go into continuous, you wait for it to lock into focus, and you have to switch it to manual focus and then go back and forth. Now, it's not the end of the world, but if you're somebody that shoots interviews or other shots where you want to set the focus once with autofocus, which is really quick to do so, and then you want it to not change unless you tell it to change, that is really frustrating. Now, the third thing has got to do with manual focusing in the rear LCD display. This has gotten better with the A7R3 and the A9, but it's still not great. When you're in the video mode and you're wanting to manual focus, the 4K output, what you're seeing on the rear LCD screen, is quite soft, and it makes it difficult to see exactly what's in focus. It may seem like you're in focus perfectly on the eyes, but you're slightly back focused or forward focused, especially if you're shooting with a shallow depth of field. Now, the weird thing is, if you switch over to the manual photo mode, the detail is much better. It's a huge difference. You can easily see what's in focus even if you're shooting on an 85 f1.8. As soon as you go into the video setting, it gets much softer. This has got to do with how the camera is sampling the image and how much data it's sending to the rear LCD. Maybe it doesn't have enough processing power, or maybe they're just using the same algorithm as they used to do before. But for example, on my old Samsung NX1s, which came out like 3 years ago or even more than 3 years ago now, the image was was super detailed. As soon as you go into the video mode, it actually got more detailed than the photo mode, which was great because you never had to punch in to set manual focus. You could see exactly what's in focus. On other cameras like Canons or Panasonics, it stays roughly the same, but on the Sonys, it gets worse, which is definitely frustrating. Number 4 is using an external monitor when you're shooting in 4K. These newer Sony cameras have touchscreens with very good autofocus, and that gives you the ability to tap on an object and have the camera smoothly and accurately focus on it. But if you're shooting in 4K with an external monitor like the excellent Small HD Focus, as soon as you hit that record button, you don't get an image on the rear LCD of the camera. It goes black. While you still have all the icons and you're recording clip length and stuff like that, everything else is dark and you have to just go off of the external monitor. Now that could be fine, but if you do want to make use of that touch to focus option, you're going to be tapping on a completely dark display, trying to guess what you're trying to focus on. Now the last issue may not be a big deal to you depending on how much cameras you shoot with and how much cards you use per shoot, but when I go to shoot a wedding or some other kind of larger shoot, it's really frustrating that each time you put in a new SD card in the camera, it resets the numbering. So you start with a 001 and you go to 002. So when I go to a wedding and I have 4 different cameras and I'm using multiple SD cards and I come back and I have tons of the same file names for clips that were shot at different times on different cameras, and you go to try to sync all that together, you can really get some issues with different clips not lining up properly or the program relinking to other clips. It just makes it frustrating to organize something, where other cameras will start at 001 and they can go all the way up to like 1,000. Some can even go up higher than that, or you can customize how the camera does this. So if you're somebody that shoots a lot or likes to switch out your SD cards, this can definitely be frustrating. All right guys, so those are my top 5 things that really kind of bug me with Sony cameras. If you have something else that's frustrating you, go ahead and type it down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. If you have something to work around some of these issues, definitely let me know as well. On top of that, make sure you guys are subscribed and have those notifications enabled for my top 5 things I love about Sony cameras that people don't often talk about. That will be the next video that's going to be out on this channel. If you're watching this at a later time, that video is already up, so you can click right over here and watch that video right now. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Max, and I will see you in the next video.